Let's talk about how to get a deeper squat. I'm going to go over 3 main things that you can do right now to either assess your body to see if you need to work on other stuff, or to help you add things to your workout right now that'll help you squat deeper. Let's get into it. First, let's go over what the squat is trying to achieve. This helps you understand why these other tips are going to be essential and why they can actually help you. So with our squat, it is more dropping it like it's hot. It is more thinking about bending your hips, your knees, your ankles simultaneously to drop towards the floor. Our chest, our trunk is in a more upright position. This upright position of our trunk makes it excessively harder to keep balance and weight on our feet. This is going to be a key for us in what we do to help you get a deeper squat. And why it's also difficult for some of y'all to actually squat deeper based on your anatomy. Now, when we talk about our squat, we think about shifting our weight into our hips while keeping our balance on our feet. We also think about that it's a mainly quad-centric exercise. Yes, we want our glutes to work with it, and we want our core to work with it, but we're not mainly targeting posterior chain here. We're getting a lot of quads, which is great. That's what we want. It helps us lift, it helps us move, but it does create some issues. To get this low position of squat, we have to weight shift into our hips to get hip bending, hip flexion, to help you get a deeper and lower squat. To get a deeper squat, we may want to add a load. And so part of what the deeper squat, the issue is that we don't feel balanced over our feet. But it's that we need the weight shift to shift just not down straight, but back and down a little bit. And this allows your hips to have a much better role in your squat. So the first tip is that add a load outside and forward of your body to help you shift into your hips better. It can be as light as like 8 pounds. Grab a jug of water, hold it out in front of you, and do a squat. See if it helps you get lower right now. This allows their chest to stay in a little bit more upright position, allows that hip to move, and you to also maintain the weight on your feet. Number two goes a little bit into this. It talks about how we just may not trust our body. We may not trust the balance, the control, the muscle activation that our body needs to do. We may have had a knee injury in the past. We may have had a hip injury in the past. And so I call it progressive lowering. What you're going to do, you'll find your office chair, something that you can raise and lower in a succinct amount of time. You can keep it at the same level if you want to. And you'll actually just squat down and touch the box. Then you'll stand back up. You'll squat down now a little bit lower. And you'll find that as you start to trust your body, you can now start to squat lower and lower. But it's that you're learning that progressive way of actually sitting. This sitting and just tapping that box and coming back up is a different way that our brain thinks, but our brain has different patterns. And so naturally, we're going to allow to sink deeper into our hips, deeper into our knees, and drop deeper into the squat. Once you get used to this in different levels, then you take a step away from the object and you see if you can go down that far and you come back up. Do it several reps and then go back to your actual object that you were testing against and squat down to it, touch it, and come back up. Can you achieve the same range of motion touching the object versus not touching the object? If you have difficulty with that, then that's the level that you need to stay at to help you achieve and gain trust in your body that you can actually come down to that level and come back up. The third way that I'm going to go over of how to improve and help you deepen your squat, plus one other little bonus at the end of this, is you are going to add heel raisers. And a lot of y'all have heard of this, especially if you have worked on improving how deep your squat actually needs to be. Is that we add plates underneath your heels, we add a 2x4, something, books, something that raises the level of your heel. You actually use heel raiser shoes. This helps you in a couple different ways. One, first and foremost, it makes it where if you have any ankle range of motion issues, that they don't limit how much your knee can translate forward. Because we need our knee to come forward enough, and we need enough ankle range of motion to make that happen to keep a deep squat. Two, it goes back to the first tip. It allows us almost to feel like we're being pushed forward. And so now we can sink down as well as back into the squat because we already feel like we're going to go forward. Now we have more range of motion to feel balanced as we sink our hips down lower. Two is it helps you keep your chest more upright. Well, I guess that would be three since I already said two. So three, it would be that it keeps your chest more upright. This also decreases how much hip range of motion you need for achieving a deeper squat. Some of us, as we are looking for that deep squat, our chest comes pretty far forward. But if we have the heel raisers on, we can keep a more upright chest. And so it helps in three different ways. One, you don't need as much ankle range of motion. Two, it helps you to sink lower into your hips. Three, and backwards a little bit more. And then three, it helps you keep your chest more upright because of those other two, which means that you don't have to have as much hip range of motion. Now, going into a little bit of a bonus, hip range of motion. There's a lot of us that feel that a pinching, a tightness, almost like a barrier in your hips as you are doing the squat. And that's what limits you in going lower. Let's look, actually, do you have a specific limitation in your hip or do you have some muscle imbalances? When we look at this, I like for people to lay on their back, keeping their back nice and straight, bringing their knees up towards their chest, just like they would a squat. This removes some of the other muscle demands and just looks mainly at rotation. To help keep your back a little straight, you can add a little towel underneath your low back, and it looks specifically at your hip range of motion. Can you achieve that motion, or do you have pinching in your hips? This leads you in knowledge of, I need to work on my hip range of motion. I potentially have some impingements going on at my hip, or I can achieve this movement. This is a mechanical issue, a motor issue when I'm actually up and loaded in my squat. And so one of the things that you can work on with either if you have more of a motor issue is you can work on your core. Usually that's the huge bang for your buck if you are needing that extra little bit to help with improving your hip mechanics. The other thing, knee out a little bit more. Make it more of a goblet squat or a sumo squat versus a regular squat. Also working single leg squats or lunges, reverse lunges are super important for this because you can achieve that same mechanical pull, the loading, but do it one side versus the other side, and that should help improve your squat as a whole. Now, if you have more of an impingement issue, some of us, like you're bringing your knees up and you just feel that stopping point. One, some of us are just built differently. Some of us have longer femurs. Some of us actually have different ways that our anatomy attaches in at our hip joint, and we don't have that range of motion. If this is how you've been your entire life, it might just be how you're built. But it could be that we need to work on some other mobility stuff. You need to foam roll your hip a little bit more of like your quads and the front parts of your hips, your hip flexors. We need to work on those range of motion. We also need to work on the range of motion of our glutes. Are we firing them correctly? Are we using too much of our TFL, which is the muscle that connects to the IT band? Having incorrect imbalances in some of those, even whenever you're doing this mobility assessment, it can affect how you're moving in that offloaded position. This also might be a key that you need to check out a physical therapist to help see and assess how your hip joints actually move, and is there a way to improve this? I hope this was super helpful in looking at your squats, going back over what we talked about. 1, adding a load out in front of you. 2, working on progressive lowering, slowly finding a box or an office chair where you can squat to and progressively lowering that base down. And then lastly, heel raisers, because it takes off load off your ankles, off your hips. It allows your hips to sink a little bit deeper, and that, in essence, lowers your total squat. If you have any other tips that you find super helpful for your squats and that you've done, I'd love for you to put them in the comments below. I'm always interested in learning more and also interested in what worked for you. If you want to hit the subscribe button, that'd be great, and check out some of my other videos to help you feel better and move better.